Hi there. I'd like to address a few questions today from some people who have come to me asking some really interesting but very valid questions about the Gen Dem group and what we call traditional generational demonolatry, and asking about our rigid ways and our intolerance and how we're big meanies and we don't like beginners and all of that. What's funny about that, actually, is the people who say that we're rigid and that we only have one way to do things and we're always like, oh, this is how you do it, da 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 da, are the same people who say the same thing about their own stuff. And chances are the reason that, they're really saying that is because they just don't like one or many of us because of personality complex. There are a few things that Demonolators really do. Well, many Demonolators. Once again, I don't want to say all because it's not true for everybody. It would be hubris for me to think or to say that, all Demonolators do this or that or whatever. And that's not the case at all. Most Demonolators are actually independent and are solitary and do what they want. I mean, only a small number of us are actually in groups, which, so I'll take that as you will. Anyway, so there's only two things that I really see that maybe where we are maybe a little elitist or intolerant, and it's not even that, it's just that we really disagree and we're not afraid to share that disagreement. And unfortunately, in our modern culture and society, people think that anytime you disagree and you don't pander to a belief that you don't hold, that you're just an intolerant, jerk or whatever, and that's not really true. It's just we don't agree with it. I mean, sure, if it works for you, great, but it's just not part of the paradigm within groups, the groups that I'm involved with. And one of those is sex with demons. Many of us have said, oh yeah, we've had fantasies about sex with demons, but I really have no evidence in my personal experience to support demon sex. So, if it's part of your experience, awesome, more power to you. Please don't come to me expecting me to validate your experience. You should be able to validate it for yourself, especially since you're the one who had it. So it shouldn't really matter what I believe anyway. I mean, my belief shouldn't affect your belief. You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying. And then there's the people who come to me telling me that they are demons. Now, let's pause for a minute here, because on some level I do agree with that. I do agree that we are all a part of the demonic divine, and therefore we are all demonic to some degree. However, I do not believe, excuse me, I have a bit of a cold. I do not believe that we actually are like Christian demons from hell with, pitchfork, like there's like a demon soul inside us or anything bizarre like that. I mean, metaphorically speaking, sure, okay, fine, I'll believe that, but once again, I'm not going to treat someone who comes to me and says, well, I'm part demon or I'm demonkin or whatever. I'm not going to treat them special because they're just like everybody else to me, from my perspective. And usually when they come to me, that's what they want. They want validation that they're special and they're different and that they have all these amazing powers and that, we should revere them and worship them. And it's like, well, technically we should revere and worship ourselves too, but that doesn't always happen either. Especially with, how people are. But it's something to consider. So like when you come to us and you're telling us, oh, well, I'm the Antichrist or I'm a demon or whatever. Yeah. I mean, just because we don't agree with you or we don't believe you doesn't mean we're intolerant jerks. It simply means that it's not something we believe. And when there's a disagreement of belief, it's easy to say, oh, well, you're an asshole, oh, I'm right, because, everybody's right, especially when it comes to like magic and spirituality. Everything is subjective to the individual who experiences it. And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. A lot of magicians get tripped up in that. They think that just because something holds true for them, it should hold true for everyone else, and that's not true. And I'll be the first to tell you that. I'll be the first to tell you that, like, for example, like the demonic ends are not required for invocation. You can make your own invocations and they'll be just as powerful. There's also a misconception running around that the ends are like really negative and everything, or we don't know where they come from. Well, you know what? We really don't know where Enochian comes from. So we've got the Enochian, whatever. We've got that, but and linguistics, you know, people who study language and who study linguistics, they're like, well, Enochian's a real language. It's got a syntax, it's got grammar, etc., etc. We've had the same thing happen with demonic ends. We've actually had people study it. They don't know what language they're in, but they do know it has a syntax and a grammar, just like with Enochian. And on top of that, I mean, and here we go, Klingon, the language Klingon from Star Trek also has a syntax and grammar. So the argument could be made that Enochian's made up too. So, you know, when it comes to magical languages like that, I mean, well, what do you do? It's something to consider. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm just, you know, throwing information out there, letting you take that information, think about it, and do whatever you want with it. So you can make up your own ends if you want to. Why not? I guess. I'm not really sure exactly what it would, you know, serve to do. You could probably just do it in English just as well if you wanted to. Our method of working ritual, for example. I don't think that's really rigid either because there are so many different ways you can construct that. And it's not limiting because you don't have to adhere to it. Books are collections of ideas, people. They are not, you know, rigid fact. They're not, you have to do this 100% this way. It's just that people wrote it down because it worked. And a lot of people said, wow, that really works. And so they wrote it down and they said, here you go. You can take that information and do whatever you want with it. Nobody's requiring you to believe it. And I've always said that. I've always said, you know, do what works for you. There is not one specific way. Yes, if you want to practice the type of demonolatry I practice, like there's denominations. There are denominations within demonolatry just like there are with Christianity or any other religion, even Satanism, okay? Different types of people who work different types of ways. There is not one way to skin a cat. There's no one way that's better than the other. You have to find what works for you by experimenting and actually doing the work, and then learning from that, and then modifying until it works for you, as above, so below. We change all the parameters for our rituals to work with all of these external and internal entities or energies. So why would it be any different for you as a physical being? Why shouldn't the parameters change for you individually? Something to think about.